Welcome back to Be Inspired. I have a really cool guest today. I'm actually really excited. She's like, uh, she's another warrior mom, right? This is Echo Zhong. We're both USC grads, so fight on,
Yeah,
right?
fight on.
We connected recently through the Women's Conference, the International Women's Day Conference that we had there. And I'm excited. She's such a hard worker. She has a new baby. She's super cute. And she loves learning about other people's stories. So that was like an instant connection for us. So I'm excited. Echo, welcome. Can you tell everybody a little bit about you? I know you're working for a startup, and just tell us a little bit about your story.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, happy to be here. Thank you for having me. For me, I've been working in the accounting finance industry for over 10 years now. Started in public accounting, and later on, I got into consulting for a couple of years. I just always have that kind of like entrepreneurship in me. I feel like I always wanted to be part of building something, like growing a business, that type of thing. So now I'm with a startup, and I've been with them for almost 4 years now. We've grown the team from less than 20 people to over 200 in under 4 years. So it has been a very interesting journey. On the personal side, along this journey, I got married, I had a kid. So it has been, a lot of changes. And, as a working mom, you started to, navigate through all these challenges, starting to, think about all the challenges or all the things you have to overcome as a working mom. And yeah, very, very happy to have this type of conversation. And, if hoping to bring more awareness or have more conversations like this in the future.
Absolutely. I'm so glad to hear. When we talked before, I was just really glad to hear your story, because you said something that was really interesting. Because working moms, 40, 50 years ago, that was like, okay, sure, that, I guess you can work and raise your kids. Now, number one, it's a necessity. But number two, it's we can have it all. We're supposed to do it all, and you're supposed to be able to do it all looking fabulous, and
Yeah.
all that, all that, and
so, cooking amazing dinner and all the things like that.
There's tons of hours in a day. Like, I know moms that wake up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to prepare all the things that they need to get done for the day so that they can be relaxed. And every time I talk to those people, I think, when do you sleep? Like, how are you not like dragging an ass by the end of the day? Like, so exhausted, So I'm excited to be able to kind of dive into this. And so I have a this or that question though. Like, do you prefer working alone or working in a group?
I would say right now I prefer working in a group, because like you can really have that level of support. Everybody's in it together, type of thing. Yeah, I would say group setting.
Fantastic. So at the startup, what do you do there? Like, what do you do there, and how has that role kind of evolved over time? Because a startup is like, you're wearing a million hats, right? Sometimes.
Yeah. So my role has really evolved over the years. Early on, since we're very small, like literally the team in the US is just me, the CEO, a product person, and a couple of sales guys. So at that time, as you can imagine, I'm just doing all kinds of things, because I'm pretty much the CEO's right hand. So I'm in operations, I'm in finance and accounting, of course. I'm in people ops, I'm in success, overseeing manufacturing and supply chain. Wow. So yeah, so it was a lot. But I really had fun doing it, because through that, you really get to know the business more. You kind of get the pulse of the business, and you learn a lot along the way. As we scale up, though, we started hiring people to to fulfill those roles so that we can offload those responsibilities. And now I'm mainly focusing on, the core finance functions, so fundraising, FP&A, go-to-market, and things like that. Yeah, which is why, like, earlier on, I was saying, like, if I were to pick right now, I would pick group settings, because you can really have all these talented people come in with their own level of experience, their own skill sets that could really complement the team, versus, if it's just you, you're still a person. There are things that you don't know, that you're not, so good at doing. So that's what brought me to that choice, because I feel like if it's a couple of years before, perhaps I was like, I might have chosen working alone, because I feel like, oh, I get it done faster. I'm like 100%. I know the status 100%. On top of it. But now I think I'll pivot more into group setting, team efforts.
I think that when you have that drive to be able to build something, whether you are working as an entrepreneur or you're working as a job, as an employee, that drive to be able to build something, it's a collaborative effort. It's a team effort.
Definitely.
Like, there is no isolated person that can have massive success without utilizing the mindset, the brain power, the intelligence, the work ethic of other people, right?
Definitely.
That's really, so I'm curious though, how that's kind of changed and transitioned. How has that changed from before you had your daughter to now being a working mom and kind of juggling the whole world?
Oh man, I feel like one of the things that you realize is, like, before you had a kid, like, all these people who already had kids, they would be telling you things. They'll be like, oh, your life will be different, or like you will be a different person, like, and you'll be thinking, before you had a kid, you'll be thinking, that sounds crazy. But once you have a kid, you'll be like, oh my gosh, all these things they said, it makes perfect sense. And having a kid definitely changes your life. It changes your perspective a lot. And for me, when it comes to work, I really think it changed. First of all, it changed my perspective on looking at work in general. And secondly, I think it really changed my my style as a leader. I think those two are what I felt the most. Regarding the perspective of work, I think previously I would just kind of like work nonstop, because as we were talking before, we have a US team, we have a China team, and back then, early on, I was overseeing both regions. So often I would have to get on meetings at night. So that's like going all the way past midnight, and then I have to get up early for the US, and sometimes there's meeting with Europe, and that means you're getting even earlier. So yeah, it's very challenging, but now having my daughter, and you really have to kind of start thinking about, there needs to be boundaries. There really needs to be a set time that I wanted to dedicate it to my family and my kid. That I think has really prompted me to set boundaries at work. And I think overall it has worked out well, because once you set that boundary, the next step is for you to start thinking about, okay, for a company or for a function to make that happen, what do we need to do to facilitate that? And that's important. It's not just to support me, because I think everybody needs to allocate that time to their family. They can't just be working 24/7. So that becomes a really important conversation we had in within the organization, to make sure that this is facilitated. Everybody's getting enough support so that they can have a better work-life balance in general.
Mm. You used a really interesting word because I was going to ask you about balance because frankly, anybody who are like trying to achieve things and what we're trying to do within our lives, there's an element of striving for balance. I've
Yeah.
always had people that are like, oh, I just things are so out of whack and I'm so unbalanced. And I've talked to my coaches and mentors about it for years, and they always told me like there's no balance. Like
Yeah.
there's no balance. But
Yeah.
what you said I thought was really interesting. They basically said like, no, there's no balance. You're gonna have times where you're gonna work your tail off over here. You're gonna be spending more time with your family. You're gonna be doing more on this side, vacation, whatever. But it's the boundaries that you just said. Because even though we don't have balance, I think the idea of boundaries and being able to say, okay, this is this time, and being a mom, I know that the kids are. When we got on, I was like, "Is your daughter sleeping?" And you're like, "Yeah, she just woke up." But I already know. Like, I will do meetings, especially in the Zoom era. I'll do meetings, and my daughters are like,
Yeah.
yeah. For a long time, it was like this little side arm that you could see on the Zoom. Where I was like, "No, not right now. Later, a little bit." They're older, but like when they're babies, like it's just what it is.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate that. And so how have
Sure.
you had to kind of become your own advocate as a working parent?
Well, I personally, I didn't find that to be too hard to do because, I work with the CFO and CEO directly, and both of them are extremely supportive of any kind of either decisions or like issues that needed to be discussed in this around this topic. So they have been very supportive. So I personally didn't find myself like hesitating or like embarrassed to bring it up to say that I need to set this type of boundaries. So I think that's important. Like if in a work settings, like if your supervisors or your leadership team, they already have this kind of mindset, then everything would just kind of fall in naturally. However, I'm not 100% sure that that is the case in all environments. I think perhaps like in certain situations, people do need to, they do need to have that level of courage or to bring it up or to have enough support elsewhere to be able to make this an issue on the table to discuss. But for me personally, I think I'm very lucky. It didn't have
That's
much of an
fantastic.
issue. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
So now this is interesting because you're working so closely with the CEO and CFO, and you're looking at the financial stability of the company, right? Profit and loss, and how are they raising capital, what have you. So I kind of want to segue that into like personal finance also. So how do you feel like obviously there has to be a level of stability with the companies as they're growing and what have you, seeing how profitable they become. But how are you seeing maybe financial stability as what level of importance are we facing now for our next generation of business owners, parents, employees, entrepreneurs, what have you?
Now is definitely a very interesting time. I think for every company, like I think through the pandemic, like every company has really started to look at employee happiness in general. Like they start to take a new perspective on this. The pandemic kind of forced everybody to go out of the traditional way of working and got everybody comfortable with this new way of working. And now all of a sudden, all the employers, they need to think about it from a different angle. And then we have the big exit, everybody, like for us,
what's up with the Great Resignation?
Yeah, we're definitely feeling it. It's gotten that much harder to get good talents. All this, we have these type of conversations internally as well. Like mainly around, first of all, what can we do to attract talents, and also what can we do to make our current employees happy so we retain talent. I'm very happy that these topics are they're getting more awareness, and we're talking about this more, because that, I think, is key to financial stability of our employees, as well as how we think about giving them enough so that their next generations in a more secure position. I think all of that are factors in this conversation, because the reality is you're seeing prices going up so much, but then what are we doing to our employees to compensate for that part? And how does that play into our strategy? So, for example, if, like, I guess a seemingly clean cut way of thinking about it is, okay, if we need to pay our employees more, does that mean we need to increase our price as well to compensate for the inflation and things like that? All that are issues we're thinking, that we're trying to I guess balance as a company, to make sure that our business is running healthy and we're taking care of our employees.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that it affects everyone, the increased prices, the supply chain, it affects everybody. Like, I don't think nobody's immune, it's just,
definitely.
It's kind of like the pandemic was like, there wasn't one person on the face of the earth that didn't know about the pandemic, and I don't think there's anybody on the face of the earth right now that isn't feeling inflation, like the need for more money,
I definitely feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but it's interesting. I just, what I've noticed is that there's a shift in our world, and yes, the drive for happier employees, and yes, work-life balance, or establishing those boundaries, but people want to know that they're a part of something that they can believe in, that they're doing some good out in the world. And that's really my I guess my selfish reason for doing these podcasts is like doing my research for my own book, for my own stuff. But I also want to be able to share the stories of people that are doing things that are good, celebrate positivity,
Definitely.
So yeah, I mean, okay, so I have a couple of this or that questions, and we're almost the end, but these are silly, but I just feel like these are good questions just to get to know you better. So would you rather go on vacation to Hawaii or Alaska?
Hawaii.
Yeah, it's like a no-brainer.
I really want to go to Alaska because I haven't been. But yeah, anyway.
Me too. I've always wanted to go, but I'm like, if I had to pay, it'd be really easy to go to Hawaii.
Yeah.
What about, so I had to ask this question before. So when you put your cups away in the cabinet, do you put them open face or closed face, I guess?
Open face.
Open face. Okay. All right. Yeah. And then cardio or weights?
Cardio.
Okay. Like it. Okay. So here's my last question. And I'm excited because I just think it's always good to get the perspective of somebody who's in a business, but that's in the place where it's on the level that's about to explode. Right. I just think that's a very unique spot in business. So what advice would you give to people who want to start a family and build a career either for themselves or in a company? What have maybe a couple things that you've learned and maybe things that you would share with other people?
I think, I think for the risk of sounding a little bit too, too much to one side, is I would say just do it. Just for starting a family, having a kid, honestly, that's kind of how I was thinking about it, because for the longest time I was like, like I wanted to like make manager, perhaps have a kid next year. Oh, I really wanted to grow this business, perhaps we wait. But then you know what they say, that there's really no good time. Like if you really think about it, there is no good time. But the time is right now, because there is never, if you really have to overthink it, then there's never a good time to do it. Therefore, if you want a kid, you should just you should just commit to it. And once you commit to it, you will find a way. And that's really how I learned, because that's my experience at D10. Like the thing is, you have to make changes elsewhere to make sure that to make sure you do it. Yeah, that's that's my suggestion. And then also similarly for if you have a great idea, if there's something that you're excited about, if it's a business idea, or if it's just some type of work that you're excited about, you wake up thinking about it and you can't stop thinking about it, you really want to do it, I think you should just go do it. And that's how I started my consulting business. Like I've been talking to a lot of friends about it, and like we actually start working a little bit on the side, and that's all I can think of. It's like that's essentially all you can think about. You want to think about, okay, what can I do better to make my customers happy? Like what else can I do to grow this business? And that's once you're on that track, there's nothing that should stop you from putting that in action, because I would consider you very lucky if you have found that path, because that's what you want to do. And a lot of people it takes a lot of people a lot of time to figure that out. So if you're already there, you should think about how to make it happen instead of
100%. People ask all the time, how do you do it all? How do you balance it all? You just do it.
Yeah.
Like you just do. And before I had kids, I feel like I'm the great overthinker. Like if they can give awards on overthinking, like I honestly, I've heard that overthinking is a sign of fear, right? It's a procrastination technique.
True.
And something that keeps us from, moving forward. It's kind of like a stall tactic for us. Like my daughter will, like last night it was time to go to bed, and she was like, I'm going to hang up all my clothes and put them in rainbow order. I'm like, this is a stall tactic. Kids do it. Adults do it. We just have different ways that we do it. Right. And I remember thinking, when we didn't have kids, when we have kids, we'll be so much more focused on our why and what we're doing this for. And, my motivation will be stronger. My inspiration will be stronger. Then when I had kids, I had that, but I was like, man, I'm just so busy doing all the stuff,
Yeah, definitely.
But I totally agree with you. It's just, you just have to get after it and just do it. So I love this. I think that this is a real view of what it's like to work a job, run a business, be a parent, juggle all the pieces of life, you know what I mean? That are that ultimately what you want to be able to have more happiness. We're all doing it for that piece right there. So, well, I love this. I think this was a great chat. I hope you got something out of it too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the chat. I mean, I'm just so happy we're talking about this. If it could inspire anybody, if anybody could take away something from this, that would be great. It doesn't matter what they took away. Also very happy to be talking about this with you.
I love it. Well, I'm so grateful that we were able to hear your story and share it. And I'm excited to put it out there for other people to learn from. And, you can find inspiration in all different areas and all different people. And you inspire me. So be inspired, everybody, for a great life. Thank you. We'll see you next time. And Echo, if you, I will put up your information so that people can find you on LinkedIn or what
Yeah,
have you. And
sounds good.
thank you so much.